Hey everyone, Rick here, and folks, we are back with the latest offering from Archon Studio. Folks, you know them from Dungeons and Lasers, you know them from Rampart, and Rampart is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Rampart 3rd Edition, upcoming Kickstarter launching soon. Check the description below for links, timelines, all the information you need to know. Full disclosure, this stuff was sent to me by Archon Studio for review. Folks, Archon Studio definitely gambled sending some of this stuff to me. As you know, I'm no DIYer. I'm a complete novice. The pre-painted, pre-assembled life is the life for me. So how did a complete noob to this kind of clipping sprues and doing that kind of that side of the wargaming hobby that I'm not completely accustomed to? Sure, I've done a little bit of that here and there, but from my perspective, how did this go? Well, let's dive right in. So this is Rampart 3rd Edition, and it's going to be composed of two main things: functional floors and ruined city ruins. Now, I don't know pricing. You're going to have to check the Kickstarter preview link below to see if there's any of that information. Whatever Archon ends up updating that page with is going to be information that you'll have and I'll have simultaneously. However, they do say that these products are compatible with existing terrain. So things like the Eternal Cathedral or the Cobalt Foundry, some of their other prior products in the Rampart line, check out those if you haven't already as well. Now, another disclosure. This stuff is very prototypey. They say that right in our little assembly guide. Now, we didn't get everything, of course. We didn't get some of these really cool girders to make walkways, and we didn't get some of these accessory pieces. But we did get a lot of these cool ruined walls, doorways, and of course the floors. Just you wait to look at those floors. And we're going to do a little assembly as well. This is just kind of our little starting display. Now you'll notice a lot of edges are a little bit unfinished for me. Clipping sprues, you can see. I know modelers out there are probably having a heart attack seeing some of these sprue marks. I did clean some of them up to get pieces to fit together. Just as it does say down here, this is not final technology. But I will say, despite the fact that this is very prototypey, after cleaning up some of those little sprue marks, things went together very well. All right, so let's dive right in. What are you looking at right now? Now, folks, the figures that I'm using just for scale are 28 millimeter figures from Alternative Armies from their firefight range. They are on 30 millimeter bases, and I even brought a tape measure just so that I'd be completely prepared. These are 30 mil bases, and I put a guy right in a doorway so you could absolutely see the fact that, yeah, that base slips right through that doorway. So the doorways are almost exactly 30 millimeters wide, which is fantastic for bases up to 30 mil. The height, look at the height clearance on that. Let's measure this guy and see exactly how tall he is, because you can see, you can get about a thumb in above him through that doorway. So the doorways are very, very clear. So what would we say he is? From like where his foot is to his head. I mean, those basically are about 30 mil figures. Maybe with some of that terrain, it might be a little less. To the eye line you normally want to look at. So that's about 28 mil. But yeah, they're pretty standard scale figures, and there's plenty of room again for the bases to get through, for the height of the doorway. You can see them next to the walls and stuff. And folks, it's the walls and these floors that are truly awesome. So let's bring in some just to take a peek. Now again, I don't have the full spread of all the different walls. As you saw on that little guide they provided, some of these walls look really cool, like some of these ruined walls with some, concrete missing and wood and wire paneling behind there. But just take a look at what we do have. And you can imagine if this stuff was painted, of course I'm no painter myself, but even I'd venture to guess it wouldn't be too terribly bad with as great of detail as provided on these pieces. And again, these are prototype pieces, but look how crisp the molds are. You can see all the vent slats in some of these fans and the cracks and rough spots in the concrete and the wiring all around in the tubes and the ductwork. It is absolutely fantastic. Just a simple doorway looks that good. On the reverse side, oh yeah, that's right. Some crumbling bricks and some electrical work up in the corners. Look at that, and a little kind of like a lightning bolt to show, I mean, just the attention to detail on these is fantastic. So that's an example of a doorway. Here's a corner piece, and we're going to talk about how this all goes together, but I think you can almost kind of get the picture that it's a peg and post system. Kind of, it's wargaming Lego. You can actually see through this grate, as you can see my finger in the background. But again, look at all the crack work. These city ruins pieces and the pipes. But even these pieces aren't not even the height of what we're about to see. Now, I just wanted to grab a side piece of this too, so we can get this wall to stand up on its own. So you can get a couple walls stand up there. Of course, we're going to have to, and I'm going to show you this as well. So all you essentially need to put this together tool-wise are a pair of clippers to clip them out of the sprues and maybe clean up some of the sprue marks, or if you have a file or something like that, that would be fine as well. So clippers, let's get this into frame. Slide our default build back. Clippers and some super glue. There are a couple spots, and this is completely modular. Again, the limit is your imagination. And as you can see, we got elevation going on here. So it's not just a flat board. But we're going to want clippers and glue. At the very least, there are a couple spots that are going to need some glue, and we'll get into that in just a second. But before that, let's talk about the floors. So the floors come in multiple different sizes. Let me see if I can grab another big one. We have the gigantic 4-inch by 4-inch. That is right? I'm not being misleading here. Oh, actually, it's more like 4.5. 4.5-inch by 4.5-inch square. And these individual squares are about 2.25, which makes sense because 2 of these will match up and create one of these big guys. And we have the 4.5 by 2.25 pieces as well. So these are the basic building blocks of the floors. As you can see, very nice cracked concrete detail with some of that reinforced rebar, stuff underneath there that looks great. But I'm telling you folks, the underside of the floors are where it shines. Look at these fans and the ductwork. Are you kidding me? And the power cabling. The underside of these floors are freaking fantastic. So there's the big one. Here's a small one with a couple of industrial looking lights, and then the individual one. And there may be additional sculpts. I don't know. These were just the preview pieces I was sent. So who knows what, the full range is going to end up looking like. Now let's start putting some of this together and show you how the system itself works. All right, let's focus on the floors first. And so obviously, if this was just going to be your ground, your battlescape, now it's not gridded. And see, that's where I was, I guess, a little confused when I thought maybe it was a 4x4, because, that's typically what you'd see, a 4x4, a 2x4, a 2x2. But no, there's actually no grid embedded in the floors like you'd have something like with a Dwarven Forge product or anything like that. But actually, that may be nicer because, if you were stuck on a grid, you'd have very, little wiggle room for space, especially when you're talking about just typical wargaming like 40K or Necromunda or something like that. And the base is like, again, this is a 30 mil base, so that's going to be over an inch. And so it's probably better that this stuff isn't gridded. But anyway, so you have the floors, which go together. Almost, it looks kind of like Lego, right? Don't those look like Lego studs? So let's say you wanted to do something like this, maybe. As you can see, it's very simple. You just get a bunch of these and you press them right in, and that is what connects the floors together. So it'll be something like that. And you'll have these connected at different sides if you wanted to expand the floors. and you'll have a floor connection, something like this. Now, these kind of do pop up again because it is very prototypey, but you can still, like, there we go, we got it laying flat now. Doesn't that look fantastic? You're starting to get this whole battlescape. Just imagine that painted. Now let's add some walls. So we've got our floor going. Here's how the wall system works, and I grabbed one of these from the other side to show how this works. The walls come looking like this, and of course you have a bigger one as well. I already attached one of these other side columns to it, but I left one off to show you how. Again, peg and post. You just want to line them up, make sure the bottoms are the same, because you could flip it over, but then it's misaligned. So instead, you want to make sure that the floors or the bottom of the columns match. And then you have these pegs. So additionally, and this is where the glue comes in, I've already glued this one in place. This one I have not. So now when we are ready to actually make like an angle, as you can see, this peg is going to go into this hole. And I may want to clean that up a little bit, which is why I still have my hobby tools out here, because we want to clean some of those sprue lines off. And so this peg obviously is going to want to go into that hole there, and without that extra little piece, that's not going to stay. And that's where these little additional pieces come in. We're going to want to clean that one up too a little bit, it looks like. And see, I left that off intentionally so you could see me doing some additional assembly, I swear. All right, so that's how this would go, just like that, and it would create a peg hole. However, this is where a lot of this stuff is friction fit. Like you saw, I just friction fit this in here, and I friction fit that peg in there. And that's great for the modularity, but you are going to want to glue this piece into here. So, in fact, and I was doing this backwards because I was going to do it this other way. So let's use this peg. I've already attached this column to this short wall. I'm going to put a peg in the side there. And of course I could have put it on the length side there and made a long wall that looks something like this. But instead, I've already pre-glued this one in here, and now this peg is going to go in this pre-glued hole, and I'm going to be fairly gentle with it because I don't want that to pop out. But then there you have it. We have this angled corner wall, and now we can, you could just, without even the floor, if you just wanted your bare mat to be the floor and then use this as a second story or something like that, you absolutely could. But if you did want to attach this to the floor, you can do that as well. As you see, the bottoms of the columns also have peg holes. And grabbing some of these little pegs, we can pop a peg in there, and let's go ahead and grab another one of these Lego looking pieces and just attach it to the floor over here as well. This will give us another peg hole to work with. So let me attach this underneath here. There we go. Of course, now we're popping back up again. Just bend the pieces to your will. They're not the boss of you. But we're also going to put a little peg underneath of this. So we have these two pegs on the bottom of the columns, and one is going to go about there, and the other is going to go down through there into that other bottom peg hole. So it'll look something like this. And as you can see, it's infinitely expandable. You can start going off in this direction. You can start going off in this direction, whichever way you want to go. And you can also go up. So up just means basically the same thing. You'll have your floor pieces. And as you can see, oh no, how do I attach this floor piece to the top? Well, it's using the same pieces we've already used. You can go and do something like this. And this is where some of the longer pegs come in. So you'll put a couple of these pieces similar to that. Put a couple of these longer pegs through there. So, a third of the peg's going to go down into that column from the top. And the other third is going to be in the middle through that bracket piece. And then we will have this floor that will be connecting this corner dot and this corner dot into these corners here. So like that and like, oops. And you may or may not, the jury for me is still out on if I would want to glue the columns together. I actually did in some cases, so it wouldn't pop apart like that. But once you get those in there, you then have the second floor something like this. Oops. Something like that, and then you can keep going with the walls, for example. And this is where I kind of did this on that build you see over there. There's different ruins columns. So you could do a ruin column like this. Again, peg and hole. Clip those together, and then you've got a little extra of that post now, so you could do something like this. And then now you've got a second story going, and you could keep going. You know, here's another wall, here's another wall, or another column. You could start going off on that side, doing something like that. And then now you've got this whole two-story situation going. You also have these ruined wall sides, which again, you're going to want one of these to slip in there and create a peg hole, because something like this then can start coming off of this side if you had a peg to put it there. So now if we back up a bit, now you can see we've got a couple different builds going here. We have our big old build from earlier, and then our other smaller sub build. And you could attach them together again, just hook the floors together. But as you can see, look at this. You're starting to create this whole ruined city. I mean, how freaking awesome does that look now? And I'm torn. Would I want enough of the floors to make the floors just the bottom, the base of everything? Or would I prefer to start building up from a terrain mat and using the floors more for my second, third, fourth, whatever the case may be? And I'm sure in some of these sets there's going to be stairs and other things like that. Unfortunately, I don't have any stairs to show off. Now, if you're concerned about any of the gaps, there are going to be pieces to fill in those gaps. So like, you know, when you're sticking this in here, there's a kind of a gap there. There will be trim pieces to fill in these gaps. I mean, obviously it's Archon Studios. They've thought of everything. I can only imagine what some of you who are modelers through and through could do with something like this. I would love to see it. I want to see entire ruined cities built up using this system. Obviously, you would have cleaned up the sprue lines. You'd have it all gorgeously painted. Everything would be assembled fantastically. But again, it's completely modular. We can now tear this whole thing down, rebuild it in infinitely different ways. It's just awesome. And again, this is coming from someone who has very little miniature wargaming modeling experience. I love it. So folks, I hope you are inspired to check out the latest Rampart 3rd edition Kickstarter. Again, check the description below for links. Hopefully I'll have some timelines by the time this video goes live. But as always, folks, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.